there's a lot of risk around AI. But what about supply chain risk around AI?
Yeah, well, this is a risk that is being increasingly talked about now, and it hasn't been, I don't think, for initially as AI came onto the scene, because we've all been so focused trying to control our internal risks around AI. So what I mean by that is simply focusing on what AI tools your staff should or shouldn't be using. Yep. And all that good stuff around, getting an acceptable use policy in place, putting in some technical controls as well to make sure that they only use Copilot and they don't go off and start using anything else or whatever. But because we've been so preoccupied with that, what we haven't been focused on is how our key suppliers have been using AI, yeah? Particularly when it comes to using kind of our data. So that's where these risks come from. It's how is your supply chain, your key suppliers using AI? Are they using AI behind your back? Have you any idea how they're using AI, particularly when it comes to kind of your data that you're sharing and exchanging with them? Have you got any visibility of that whatsoever? So people are now starting to really, really focus on this. And there's other things like, there's now regulation that's come about to define what those risky AI systems look like. So particularly for financial services and EU regulation, there is a definition of a high risk AI system and examples. So you can actually look in your supply chain and say, well, do any of my suppliers use these high risk AI systems?
So is there anything anyone can do? Is there recommendations of things people can practically do now?
Yeah, I'm afraid it's pretty uninteresting kind of initially, because it comes down to looking at the agreements that you have with your vendors, yeah? I liken this actually to some of the kind of protections and controls that you might expect around what your vendors can do in terms of subcontracting, yeah? You should, or certainly in our market and our clients have these provisions with us because they have to for regulatory reasons. We can't just go out and subcontract the service that they've bought from them without seeking their permission. It's sort of the same with AI tool usage, if that makes sense. You've got to get your vendors to declare how they're using AI, in order to deliver the service to you, and then wrap some control around that, such that they would need to seek permission from you, if they were to obviously change the scope of how they intend to use AI around your data and your service. So it unfortunately comes back to contractual obligations and relationship management in the first instance, but I don't know what you think, whether you think there's other ways that, companies can protect themselves against this AI supply chain kind of risk.
Well, this is tricky because like any data, once it's gone out of your business, there's not a whole lot you can do about it, which I think, to your point, it's going to come down to contracts. There's some things, the practical things you can do right now is the same for all kind of information control, which is knowing and putting technical controls in place to what data, or which data in your business can leave the business, either email or through applications or otherwise. But ultimately, yes, once it's left the door of your business, you are relying on those agreements of what people said that they're going to do with your data.
Again, going back to the horse is already bolted type scenario, if the worst does happen, because we probably have similar kind of similar concerns historically around how some of your subcontractors might be putting your data into the cloud. What kind of monitoring do you think you can put in place out there, do you see, to kind of try and search out whether your data has been kind of stolen through your supply chain? Is there a way you can address that risk?
there is a way you can somewhat mitigate against the kind of unknownness
Yeah.
of, well, where has the data gone? There are technologies out there that can search the internet for kind of keywords that are present in your data, the name of your company, email addresses of people, and they can search not only kind of the general internet, but also the hidden side of the internet called the dark web. This is where kind of cyber criminals hang out, if you like, and talk about what they're going to do, their plans, and data that they've been able to get from organisations. So there are tools in place now that aren't necessarily just AI tools, they're kind of general tools, to see if any of your data that you think is internal data has ended up on the internet.